We got Sophie the Trophy, one half of the Blonde Bombers, coming out and exposing her truth with this Bria Hartley situation, and she's also letting it be known the behind the scenes and what's really going on with Caitlin Clark's injury.
Sophie Cunningham
just dropped a bomb and fans are going crazy. It's not even about the refs or fouls or another cheap shot this time. We're talking about Caitlin Clark possibly walking away from the WNBA entirely. I mean, did you hear that right? The league's brightest star, and suddenly her future outside of basketball is a real conversation. Would you actually back her if she left? Listen, Sophie Cunningham just poured gasoline on a fire that was already burning. She hinted that Caitlin Clark's time in the WNBA might be way shorter than anyone thought, and now fans are in full panic mode. If that sounds dramatic, it's not. The signs have been there for months, and what's crazy is, Caitlin Clark isn't a rookie anymore. She's in her second year, and you'd think the league would know how to protect her by now. But spoiler alert, they haven't. She gets battered every single game, fouled constantly, and treated more like a punching bag than the superstar face of the sport. Yet the WNBA wants to act all surprised when someone like Sophie even suggests Caitlin might actually quit.
Dude, I don't know. Everyone keeps asking, everyone's like, you know, and I'm like, literally, she doesn't even know. Like, it's just like a day by day legit type of thing. And so, yeah, she's close, but like, you also have to remember, like, she could be playing if it wasn't in the WNBA by now, but like at this level, with how deep and like how good people are nowadays in our league, which is the best it's ever been, like you can't just be good, you have to be on top of your game. And so just trying to get her back in game shape, I think, is what they're trying to do. But like, again, it's literally a day by day. I'm not holding out any information. I just literally don't.
You know, they've practically been daring her to. Let's rewind a bit. Sophie Cunningham has been fined so many times, she's practically the league's walking ATM machine at this point. And yet, she's the one brave enough to call out what everyone else can see. Caitlin's situation simply isn't sustainable. It's just not working.
Yeah, and she also would be able to play if this was not sumo wrestling, if this was not UFC, if you guys did not play rugby in these basketball games, she'd probably be able to get out there and do her thing. But she has to put on all this armor, which caused her to get hurt anyway. She had to put on all this armor because y'all don't play basketball. It is rugby out there.
Sophie even straight up said Caitlin might not even know when she's coming back from her injury. Day by day, that's the official word. But here's the thing, day by day can really quickly turn into week by week. And then, before you know it, season over. Fans don't need to be doctors to figure out that something just isn't adding up here.
Look, listen, Sophie, I love you trying to hold it down. We love that you were trying to hold it down. We wish you a speedy recovery. But as far as what's going on in WNBA, we are on them. We gonna stay on them. It's not gonna change. It's not gonna change. We're on to their nonsense.
Let's be brutally honest.
Now, Sophie then dropped the part that really got people talking. She said Caitlin could probably already be playing if she wasn't in the WNBA. Man, that's a dagger, right? Think about what that actually means. In almost any other league or even another sport, Caitlin would likely be back on the court. But in this league, the talent gap isn't as forgiving as you'd think. The refereeing? It's all over the place. And the politics? Honestly, it's worse than high school drama. So instead of celebrating the fact that Caitlin sells out every single arena she steps into, we're stuck wondering if she'll even play again this season. Or worse, if she'll even want to come back next year.
I love Paige to death. Do not get me wrong. I think, like, again, I think she's a hell of a player and like would love to play with her one day. But those refs were giving her every freaking whistle last night. Like, you literally couldn't touch her. Couldn't touch her. And that shit is so annoying to me.
Look, to be totally honest, Caitlin Clark doesn't need the WNBA. The WNBA, on the other hand, desperately needs her. The ratings, the ticket sales, the merchandise, all of it just exploded when Caitlin stepped onto the court. Without her, the Fever become irrelevant again. Half the arenas would go back to being half empty, and the whole league would just slip right back into obscurity. Caitlyn brought this massive spotlight, and now that spotlight is exposing every single ugly crack in the system. Fans are seeing the bad refereeing, they're seeing the selective punishment, they're seeing how certain stars like Paige Buckers get the royal treatment. Meanwhile, Caitlyn gets shoved, hacked, and then somehow gets whistled for daring to complain about it. And that, my friends, is exactly the double standard Sophie was talking about. Sophie can't even mention Paige's name without getting fined, but Angel Reese can openly say Caitlyn has a special whistle and nobody bats an eye. Coaches scream at refs, and it's just shrugged off, but when Sophie cracks a joke or points out clear favoritism, suddenly her bank account takes a hit. That's not enforcing rules, that's targeting. And when that targeting constantly revolves around Caitlyn, fans start to wonder if it's actually personal. Now here's where it gets really uncomfortable for the league. Caitlin Clark just doesn't strike me as someone who wants to waste her career getting bullied by refs and feeling resented by her own teammates. She's super competitive, she's fiery, but she's also incredibly smart. If she feels like this league is literally breaking her body and draining her energy, why wouldn't she look elsewhere? Honestly, that's not some hot take, it's just common sense. Think about Europe. So many players go overseas in the offseason for one simple reason. They get paid more, they get more respect. And believe it or not, many of them say the refereeing is actually better over there. Caitlyn could leave tomorrow and immediately become the highest paid women's basketball player on the planet without ever dribbling a WNBA ball again. And truthfully, I wouldn't blame her. Fans wouldn't either. They'd follow her games online, buy the streams, and watch her absolutely dominate teams in Spain, Turkey, or Italy. The WNBA would just be left scratching its head, wondering how they managed to lose their biggest star before her third season even started. But there's another angle here, and this one might sting the league even more. Caitlin Clark has options completely outside of basketball. She's even hinted at her love for golf. What if she decided to take the Paige Spiranak route? You know, leaning into sponsorships, media appearances, maybe even playing professionally. She's marketable enough to make tens of millions doing something that doesn't involve getting her face raked by someone's elbow every single night. That's the real nightmare scenario for the WNBA. It's not Caitlyn playing in Europe, it's Caitlyn just saying, you know what? I'm golfing, I'm building my brand, and you guys can keep the chaos. Fans are already whispering about it. Wouldn't Caitlyn be happier in golf? What if she just did Europe and came back when the WNBA actually fixed itself? When those kinds of whispers turn into real conversations, the league has a serious problem. Because stars leaving isn't new. Maya Moore walked away. Liz Cambage checked out and plenty of others took long breaks. But the huge difference here is that Caitlyn is the biggest thing to ever happen to women's basketball. If she bails, it's not just a loss, it's an earthquake. And seriously, don't act like the signs aren't there. We've got injury confusion day-by-day updates that make no sense. Her not showing up at film sessions, and now Sophie Cunningham admitting straight up that nobody really knows what's wrong. That's not just bad luck. That's a league failing its biggest asset. Instead of being transparent, the WNBA is playing games, growing strain, ankle bruise, questionable for tonight. Fans aren't stupid. They see these patterns. They know this whole situation smells fishy. At this point, you can't even call it a conspiracy theory. Call it what it is, incompetence. The league doesn't know what's wrong. The team doesn't know how to handle it. And Caitlyn might be sitting there wondering if risking her body is even worth it for an organization that doesn't seem to have her back. And let's not forget the mental side of all this. Caitlyn is carrying a level of pressure that no woman in US sports has ever carried before. She's the face of Nike, State Farm, Gatorade, ESPN, and the entire WNBA brand. She can't even walk into a coffee shop without a line forming. Every game is on national TV. Every shot gets dissected by trolls online. Every single foul turns into a huge debate. You really think that doesn't weigh on her? Simone Biles, Naomi Osaka, Serena Williams, they all had moments where the pressure just boiled over. Caitlyn is no different. So Sophie Cunningham hinting at her potentially walking away might not be an exaggeration at all. It might just be Caitlyn buying herself some much needed peace of mind. And here's the real kicker. Fans wouldn't even hate her for it. If Caitlyn said tomorrow, I'm done with the WNBA, I'm gonna Europe, or even better, I'm trying golf, people would actually support it. They'd say, good for her, protect your body, protect your mind. The league never protected you. The WNBA, on the other hand, would completely crumble because without Caitlyn, there is absolutely no league momentum, attendance drops, media coverage vanishes, sponsorships dry up. The Caitlin Clark effect isn't just a phrase, it's the difference between survival and total irrelevance. Sophie Cunningham just said out loud what so many people have been thinking quietly. Maybe Caitlin Clark should quit the WNBA. And when fans hear that from an active player, it just hits differently. It doesn't sound like a rumor anymore. It sounds like the future. Now let's really dive into how all this ties back to the WNBA's massive double standard problem. Because it's not just about Caitlyn's injuries or Sophie Cunningham's fines, it's about how the league actually treats its stars, and how that treatment ends up creating villains, victims, and even golden children, depending on who best fits their narrative. Look at Paige Bueckers, for example. Paige walks into the league with this huge media push, and it's almost like the WNBA has already pre-written her entire script. Superstar whistle? Check. Highlight reels? Check. Fans being told she's the future of the league? Double check. And yet, Caitlin Clark has already done more for the WNBA in 2 years than Paige has ever done. The big difference: Caitlin doesn't get that safety net. She gets a giant target on her back instead. That's exactly what Sophie Cunningham tapped into. She basically held up a mirror to the league and said, "This is what you actually look like. You protect some, you punish others, and the very people who are carrying the league get the worst treatment." She didn't say Caitlyn's name directly, but everyone knew exactly who she meant, and that's why fans absolutely blew up about her comments. It's not just Caitlyn's health in question anymore, it's the league's entire credibility. Think about it, if Caitlin Clark decides she's simply had enough and leaves, what's even left? Angel Reese is popular, sure, but she's also polarizing. A'ja Wilson is an elite player, but casual fans don't really know her. Paige has a lot of hype, but she hasn't proven she can carry an entire league. Without Caitlyn, the WNBA would look a lot like it did before she arrived. Scrambling for attention, begging ESPN for coverage, and struggling to sell tickets outside of a handful of cities. That's why Sophie's words cut so deep. It wasn't just speculation, it was a serious warning. So let's play out the what-if scenarios for a second. Scenario 1, Caitlin Clark decides to stick it out, really rehab her body, and give the WNBA a few more years. Best case, she powers through, racks up MVPs, and forces the league to finally give her the superstar treatment she's absolutely earned. Worst case, the injuries just pile up, she burns out mentally, and we're left talking about what could have been instead of what was. Scenario 2, she pulls the Europe card. The money is better, the season is shorter, and she gets treated like royalty. Can you imagine Caitlyn playing in Spain or Turkey, filling up arenas overseas, while American fans are streaming her games in the middle of the night? That would embarrass the WNBA in ways you can't even measure. Scenario 3, Caitlyn totally shifts sports. She takes all her competitiveness, her insane marketability, and her massive fan base to golf. People might laugh at that idea now, but they also laughed when Michael Jordan tried baseball, right? The difference is, Caitlyn doesn't need to be Tiger Woods to succeed in golf. She just needs to show up, swing a club, and cash in on sponsorship. And believe me, sponsors would be lining up around the block. Any one of those scenarios is totally realistic, and that's the truly scary part for the league. When your biggest star has more appealing options outside your league than inside it, you've already lost the battle. Sophie Cunningham just dared to say the quiet part out loud. But let's circle back to the fans, because they're the real drivers here. Fans aren't stupid. They see the glaring difference in treatment between Paige and Caitlyn. They see how Sophie's fines keep piling up while other players get away with much worse. They see how the refereeing is so one-sided, how the injury reports are vague and confusing, and how the league's PR machine tries to spin every single controversy. And guess what? They don't buy it anymore. The WNBA had a once-in-a-generation chance to truly grow with Caitlin Clark, and instead of protecting her, they've thrown her into what looks like a rigged game. That's exactly why this conversation about her future is so incredibly real right now. If the league doesn't make serious changes fast, Caitlyn might just make the decision for them, and it definitely won't be in their favor. So, what actually happens if she leaves? The honest answer? Absolute chaos. Sponsorships would tank, TV ratings would collapse. The entire Caitlin Clark effect that boosted attendance numbers league-wide would just vanish overnight. And here's the wildest part. Fans wouldn't even blame Caitlyn. They'd blame the WNBA. They'd say the league fumbled the bag, and they'd be absolutely right. Sophie Cunningham just gave everyone a real glimpse of that reality. And now, the WNBA has to live with the fact that people are taking it very seriously. So, here's the big question. Do you think Caitlin Clark will stick it out, head to Europe, or maybe shock everyone and leave basketball altogether?